But normalization of same-sex marriage does something altogether different in the law. And that is that it requires that biology be optional in parenthood. Like divorce law didn't do that. Divorce law did normalize marriage as a vehicle of adult fulfillment, but it did not fundamentally rewrite the nature of parenthood and thereby the nature of the human child. Gay marriage did that because now for two adults to be equal, for there to be no discrimination, biology cannot matter as it relates to parenthood. And if biology does not matter when it comes to parenthood, you render children as legal accessories. They are now objects to be assigned to any adult.
Katy Faust, I can't tell you how good it is to talk to you again. Welcome back to the Coalition for Marriage YouTube channel. We've got something wonderful and really interesting to talk about today. And this is your Greater Than initiative, your Greater Than Alliance. Tell me all about it.
Okay, first of all, it's great to be with you again. I follow your work closely. You have the best interviews on the island over there, as far as I can tell. The best messaging, stalwart, unmoving. And so I just pray that your platform grows because we need that kind of presence in the UK. I know there's an awful lot of things vying for everyone's attention over there right now. But if you don't get marriage right, you won't get any of the other things that you also want as it relates to economic security and growth for the nation, and a real pride in who it is that you guys are. And so it's like it all comes back to this child. Where do they come from? To whom do they have a natural right? What are the conditions that lead to their flourishing? And you guys are the voice, as far as I can tell, the voice in the UK that are advancing those arguments. So it's always a delight to be able to be on and talking with you. And thank you for your work. And if you're listening to this, you should find ways to financially support Tony, because I talk to a lot of organizations around the world, and they're not all like him. And so this is something that you need to get in on with him for the sake of the future of your nation. So let me just get that off my chest first.
Very kind, very kind.
Well, I'll tell you about Greater Than. It is, as far as I can tell, the first attempt in any country to retake marriage on behalf of children after gay marriage has been enshrined in national law. So about 38 countries have legalized gay marriage across the world. None have attempted to roll it back yet. So that's what we're going to do in the United States. Not just my nonprofit, Them Before Us. We are spearheading a movement that has about 100 organizations and individuals in it and growing. About half of them are represented on the website, the greaterthancampaign.com website. And what are we going to do? We are going to make the case that there is a direct line, a short direct line between gay marriage and child victimization. That you cannot say, we support gay marriage, and say children have a right to their mother and father. You have to choose one of them. If you believe in gay marriage, mothers and fathers are optional in the life of a child. If you believe children have a right to their mother and father, benefit from their mother and father, long to be known by their mother and father, you cannot support gay marriage as policy. You can and should love your gay family and friends, but you have to reject the idea that marriage is a vehicle of adult validation. It is not. It is and always has been the tool that nearly every society throughout history has used to unite children to their mother and father so that they can have the best shot at being safe and loved, invested in, connected to, discover their identity, and maximizing their development. So that's it. We are going to say children have a right to their mother and father. Therefore, we must reject gay marriage.
Your argument is logical. It makes sense. You've said it's not anti-gay, it's pro-children. Yep.
That's
but then
right.
You might get, another piece I'm working on at the moment is the adoption industry in the UK, which there's heavy emphasis in the adoption industry around recruiting more gay parents. And the idea is, look, we can't find heterosexual parents. We'll just find lots of gay parents because lots of them want kids. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, what is wrong with that? It's because adoption doesn't exist for adults. This is not some vehicle to have a DEI win on the registry. This is a tool that just societies use to supplement something that was lost. The child has lost their mother and father, and they are the client in this business. Adoption is not a way to help infertile couples make a family, and it's not a way for gay people to have kids. Adoption is, you talk about it as an industry. I talk about it as an institution that is centered around the best interest of the child. That is the language that is used on the international and the national level in the United States. I am sure that that's how it is in the UK as well. This is not about giving adults what they want. This is about the best interest of the child. What is in the child's best interest? Several things, actually. Remaining connected to their kinship network is in their best interest. Placing children with relatives whenever possible is in their best interest. What else is in their best interest? Having sibling groups remain together so that they don't have to be separated from their brothers and sisters. But I'll tell you something else that is in a child's best interest: having a male parent and a female parent. Because men and women do different, complementary, beneficial things as it relates to child rearing. And as an adoptive mom myself, I can tell you,
Yep.
all of my children need a mother and a father. You could
Yep.
argue that my adopted child needed a mother and father even more than my biological children needed,
Mm.
because he is coming out of a deficit. He is coming out of such deprivation. We didn't get him until he was 2 years old. He was starved of everything that children need for 2 years. He needed the more innate nurturing that I brought, to be able to pour in to what for 10 years felt like an insatiable hunger for nurture and connection. But he also needed immovable boundaries
Mm.
and encouragement to take appropriate age, developmentally needed risks that my husband brought more clearly to that equation. He did not need two people saying, go bigger, go higher, go faster, go stronger. No, just buck up and pull up your bootstraps and get it done. He did not need two people saying, it's okay, we love you, you're fine. He needed one of each. And it was 10 years before he got the kind of stability, right? Both the nurture that he needed and the immovable boundaries that he needed. And then finally, he was able to stabilize. 10 years, 10 years. So when you say that, oh, we're going to recruit gay couples, there might be times where a gay couple is the only option, but do not recruit them. If the child is the client, double down your efforts in saying, if you're in a stable heterosexual marriage, consider whether or not you are called to bear the burden of a child who has lost their mom or dad. That is the kind of messaging you would have if adoption really is about the child. But if this is just a distribution center so that we can say, look how equal we are, then sure, get whoever you want.
So it's very different in the UK to the way things go in the US in many different ways. I mean, I've written about this before. Your national security strategy, for example, in December, kind of referenced the conventional marriage family as a security asset, a national security asset that needs to be honed and protected. We've got nothing like that in the UK. And then our whole legislative framework is different, of course. We don't have a Supreme Court precedent like you, which kind of leads to same-sex marriage. We have a piece of legislation which was passed by Parliament, and all those sorts of things like that. You've said in a couple of different places that you would love to help the UK push for similar change in the UK. What would that look like in that context?
Actually, let me ask you, Tony. Are you familiar with the parenthood statutes in the UK? And what are they saying? Do they use the words mother and father? Do
Well,
they say
no, well, here we
progenitor one,
go.
progenitor two? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
explain
here
to me
we go,
what
right?
parenthood statutes look like right now.
Absolutely. So we had, way before gay marriage was ever discussed on the statutes, we had something called the Human Fertilization and Embryology Act, which actually removed the need of a father from the birth certificate. Yep. So parenting became something of intention, not something of biology. And this was years before any of the gay marriage stuff came along. Yep. So already we'd broken the link between parents and biology. And so a lot of people point to, kind of UN conventions on the rights of the child and the rights to grow up with their parents. But actually, it's of no use because that term parent is a legal term, not a biological term. Yep. So we were well ahead of the game in terms of breaking the connection there. And you're absolutely right. All through society, we're forgetting the progenitor terms, and we're using birthing parent one, birthing parent, or all sorts of terms that avoid the term mum and dad. So yeah, you're quite right.
That's the whole game. That is the whole game. It is not just about saying this is what marriage is. You begin with this is what parenthood is. My colleague Josh Wood just published something in the Federalist today and said parents cannot be assigned at birth, just like sex cannot be assigned at birth. Sex at birth is observed. So is parentage. So we're playing into the same fiction that DNA is irrelevant to
Yeah,
personhood,
yeah.
especially to the personhood of the child. DNA, genetics, biology is not an obstacle either to a child discovering their identity nor a child being connected to their parentage. So the UK lost the entire game when you said parenthood can be assigned because it can't. Right? Parenthood is an embodied reality that we discover when we look at the nature of the human child. It comes from a man and a woman, and that should be recognized, not assigned. It cannot be assigned. You can't unassign a biological link from a child, just like you can't unassign them from their gender, from their sex at birth. So this is the game you begin. And so when I say I want to help the UK retake marriage, this is what it means. What gay marriage requires and what modern family requires is actually an erasing of all of the natural contours of the family, erasing male and female, erasing the biological reality, erasing the progenitor aspect of the marriage, erasing the distinction of a procreative relationship. And it's that's important because all of those different natural aspects of the family are really important to children. Why? Because they long for a mother and they long for a father. Not only does it developmentally benefit them, they want it. If a child has two mothers, they will hunger for a father. If the child has two fathers, they will hunger for a mother. It arises naturally in the child. You cannot assign it away on a birth certificate.
And you've written about that wound on numerous occasions, haven't you, in your first book and ever since then? And what's really interesting is so we've got the whole surrogacy and IVF debate in the UK, and there's been a bit of a pause on reform of surrogacy legislation. And we've got the system now in the UK whereby you can find out who your biological parents are if you want to. And more with services like 23andMe, we've now got kids coming of age who are discovering, oh my goodness, these people or one of these people I grew up with is not my biological parents. Tell us a little bit about your research and what you found around that.
Well, it's interesting because they never go, no big deal, I don't care. They go, oh my gosh, this changes everything that I think about myself. There is a direct identity component to understanding who your mother and father is. You know, when I go speak to large groups of people, I say, I want you to think about a movie or a great novel that you've read recently where a child goes on a search for their long lost mother's boyfriend. And everyone's like, kind of chuckles because there's nothing like that. Nobody searches for this unrelated adult, even if they were in a romantic relationship with your mother or father at some point. Then I say, I want you to think about a movie where a child goes on a search for their long lost father or their long lost mother. And then you get like every generation has several movies, right? You've got like The Parent Trap for the boomers. You know, you've got like Land Before Time and American Tail for the Gen Xers. You've got Elf for the millennials. You've got A Wrinkle in Time, you know,
Yeah.
for the newer kind of Gen Zers. You've got Star Wars. You've got Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Like we always tell these stories about fatherless and motherless children or orphans. You've got Harry Potter. I mean, like everybody's always trying to find out who is my mom and dad? How can I find them? I miss them. I love them. I want them. Like your own mother and father, arguably, are the only people that you can love without ever having even met, and yet you long to know them. And so that is what we're seeing when these kids suddenly discover my father isn't my father. My mother isn't my mother. They go, I've been lied to. Who am I? And then instantly, many of them say, and now I need to know who they are. I need to find them because biology is not irrelevant. It's not irrelevant to identity formation. It's not irrelevant when it comes to child development. It's not irrelevant when it comes to meeting their longings for male and female love. And I'll tell you where else it's not irrelevant as a matter of child protection. When we are looking at the criteria where that leads children to have the most likely pathway of being safe and loved, connected in and
Yep.
protected.
Yep.
You see the home of the married biological mother and father, not a two-parent home, not a mother and a father figure, not adults who are happy, not two loving dads or two loving mothers. Without question, the people who are most likely to love and protect the child are their genetic mother and father. So when you want to obscure that and say we can assign parents, what you are always saying is at least one parent is missing and you're assigning an unrelated adult to care for them. And that just means statistically, there's increased risk of abuse and neglect. So when we treat parenthood as something that can be assigned, something that is intended, and we reject the biological framework, honestly, let's just be honest about what we're saying. We care more about the approval of the diversity regime than we do about children, their protection, their identity, and their development. Just say it out loud. I care more about social acceptance than I do about children.
And you make some really strong points, overwhelmingly backed up by the social science research that growing up with a non-biological parent is a significant risk factor. And it doesn't mean it's inevitable in every case. We know that. But on a population basis, it is a significant risk factor. And of course, same-sex couples fall into that category by definition. But others would say, look, come on, Katy, the numbers are so small. And the same-sex couples procuring children, it's procuring in the US, it's not really procuring in the UK yet. It hasn't quite got there. But nevertheless, the numbers are so small. It's usually wealthy parents and the kids often do okay. Why are you making a fuss about this?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because you are right. By the numbers, divorcing heterosexuals affect more children every year, and cohabiting heterosexuals affect more children every year. But normalization of same-sex marriage does something altogether different in the law. And that is that it requires that biology be optional in parenthood. Like divorce law didn't do that. Divorce law did normalize marriage as a vehicle of adult fulfillment, but it did not fundamentally rewrite the nature of parenthood and thereby the nature of the human child. Gay marriage did that because now for two adults to be equal, for there to be no discrimination, biology cannot matter as it relates to parenthood. And if biology does not matter when it comes to parenthood, you render children as legal accessories. They are now objects to be assigned to any adult. And you know what? Not just gay couples. Now they are assigned to Chinese billionaires who are mass producing surrogate children in California. They are assigned to pensioners in the UK who are 70 and 80, who have purchased an embryo, rented a womb, and, gotten a certificate to raise, in essence, their own caregiver through these now intent-based parenthood laws. So this is something that restructures parenthood for everybody. And I'll tell you one other thing. Parenthood should be observed, not assigned. When you have parenthood assigned at birth, what you actually have is a massive power grab for the state. This used to be a pre-political, privileged relationship that the state said, we're not going to go anywhere near. We have that parent-child privilege. We have that parental rights that came down from us pre-colonial times. We got it from you guys. Lord, I always say Lord Cook, but you guys pronounce it Lord Coke. And he's the one that originally spurned this idea that parents and children belong together, and that is something that exists prior to the state's authority. So that is the tradition that has been handed down as it relates to understanding the preeminence and the privilege of the parent-child relationship. The state was not there to give it. The state was there to recognize it. So now in this world of modern family, what do you have? You have the state assigning parents. It is a huge expansion of state power. And I will tell you this, if the state has the ability to assign parentage to an unrelated adult, they have much more the ability to unassign parentage from you, from your own relationship with your own
that's
child.
That's the key thing, isn't it, going forward? What does this mean going forward? We've already had a senior minister in the government. I wrote about it very recently in a proposed bill to change legislation saying parenting is not a right, it's a privilege. i.e., we will decide whether you are allowed to be the parent of your child. The
Right.
government will.
Good.
Oh my
That's right.
goodness. And so that's a whole other conversation. But then how do you. So let's think of the sympathetic MP who may be voting on surrogacy changes in the not too distant future when they come along again. And this MP is being lobbied and saying, look, there are parents, married man and woman, who can't have a child naturally. Come on. Give them the opportunity to raise a loving child. Why would you not do that via liberalising surrogacy laws?
So the whole battle is who's the victim. The reason why we have modern family and modern parentage is because anytime we want to push forward a change, whether it's no fault divorce, whether it's redefining parenthood, whether it's gay marriage, adults who cannot have what they want are framed as the victims. We tell their sympathetic backstory, we appeal to the struggles that they have, the very often legitimate longings that they're experiencing. And so the whole game here is shifting the narrative. Adults who don't get what they want deserve our empathy, but they are not the victims. Children who are denied their mother and father because we have redefined marriage, because we have redefined parenthood, because we have overhauled all of our cultural expectations about family are the victims when they lose their mom or dad. Their safety is at risk. I mean, we literally have men that are trafficking children through surrogacy because neither biology nor adoption would give them that child. And so focus on the victims. And even the victims who are raised by two loving men or two loving women, they are victimized because their hunger, their needs, and their developmental requirements cannot be met in that family structure. So we need to do a better job of saying, I am sorry you've suffered. Pull the spotlight off. You are not the victim. Here is the victim. We're going to talk about these victims. That is hard to do because the kids have a lot to lose if they talk about how they have suffered. If you want to talk about people that are truly in the closet, it is children who are being raised by same-sex couples or children created through sperm and egg donation who are like, if I talk about how damaging this was, do you understand my parents are going to cut me off? I mean, at Them Before Us, we catalog the stories of children created through reproductive technologies and with LGBT parents. Almost 100% of the time, they share anonymously because the familial stakes are so high for them. It's very easy to find a gay couple or an infertile couple saying, this is what we want. We're longing. We've struggled for so long. Easy. They get nothing but social reward and maybe political change when the kids speak up.
And part of this is coming back and revaluing or reattaching value to things like motherhood. Which we just seemed, the state is saying, no, if you're going to have kids, get back to work as soon as you can, put them in the state system. So the state will bring them up. Actually, motherhood isn't as valuable as going back out and earning GDP. That's the valuable thing. And we need to get back to that. When was the last time we saw babies in the supermarket? They're in institutions, nobody sees them, so nobody has them. The rhetoric is actually motherhood isn't important. The whole mother-father thing, don't worry, you can outsource all that nonsense. Well, no, you can't, it turns out. And you're highlighting that case wonderfully, if I might say so.
When just back to the question that you've asked a couple times that I don't feel like I've done a good job of answering, how does the UK retake marriage? And it's the same way that every country has to do it. It is by saying, we are going to insist that through culture and law and technology, we're just going to acknowledge the natural contours of the family. We will say mothers and fathers, not guardians, not parents. We are going to say biology matters. We're going to recognize that in our laws. We are going to say there's something different about a procreative relationship versus a relationship that centers around adult identity. These things do different things for children. And not making it this abstract case, not talking about this as I am all about values and principles and ideals. That doesn't move the needle. You've got to get right on the ground and say, using mother-father language matters to children, because what you cannot define, you cannot defend, right? So that's it. You just need to start in law advancing, forcing the natural contours of the family to re-emerge. And when you do that, you say the birth certificate is not for adults. The birth certificate is for the child. We are not going to put unrelated adults on the birth certificate, because it's a lie, but B, it's actually could be damaging or dangerous or harmful for the child to treat it as a second marriage license, right? All you need to do is advance laws in a variety of different jurisdictions that simply acknowledge the non negotiable realities of the human child. And if you do that, what you're going to do is you will, by default, force the natural marriage case to reemerge in law and in culture.
Yeah, I love it. I love it very much. Katy Faust, keep up your great work. I love what you're doing. I'm sure, and I really hope we can find time to talk tactics offline about how we do this in the UK. We've got 3 years, maybe four, until a national election when it looks like there might be a possibility of a very different type of party coming either into power or into opposition. That's not a party political comment. It's just an observation of fact. And there may well be an opportunity to influence legislation, to influence policy, and to do the research between now and then that backs that up. You are a fundamental piece in that puzzle. So thank you, Katy Faust.